Rahim. Dear viewers, welcome once again to another exciting and thought provoking episode of Shia Spouse Live. A very warm Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to each and every one of you. As you already know, Shia Spouse is an initiative of MUS, Majlis-e Ulama Shia, where we dive deep into real, raw, and relevant conversations that shape the Muslim marriage or the institution of marriage today. And of course, you already know the Shia Spouse Initiative. It's a platform that is secure, that is private, confidential. Of course, it's user friendly, and it's there for you, individuals like yourselves who are like minded, wanting to move forward in your journey, inshallah. Now, today, we are going to have another thought provoking conversation. We know when it comes to marriage, one of perhaps the trickiest balancing acts is um, is determining is the personal choices of oneself versus the parental expectations. So what is it that we're going to go for? Are we going to do whatever we want to do, whatever our hearts say, and we're going to follow whatever we see and view as correct? Or are we going to take the advice of our elders, of our parents, and just be like, mom, dad, tell me who you want me to get married to, and I'll go ahead and do it. And if we were to do our own choices, would we then be disappointing our parents? So there's lots of questions that need to be answered, and tonight we're going to be unpacking it all, the challenges, the emotions, and of course, inshallah, the way forward, which is always key, right? And of course, to guide us through this conversation tonight is another exceptional guest. That's Maulana Syed Imran Qaseem, a respected scholar with deep wisdom on marriage, on family, on faith, you name it. He's here to help us navigate this delicate topic with an Islamic POV, with an Islamic perspective, with, of course, practical advice. And we are going to have from him his heartfelt insights as well tonight, inshallah. So, whether you're single, or you're engaged, or you're newly married, um, this is an episode for you. Or even if you're just curious about the discussion itself, welcome. Everybody's welcome to, of course, view and watch. You do not want to miss this episode. Stick around till the end. It will be, inshallah, an eye opener and an empowering one, and maybe even a little bit controversial, because that's just how we do here in Shia Spouse. Right. So, first and foremost, Maulana, a very warm assalamu alaikum to you. And
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
did you manage to see any of the highlights of the cricket match today? Very important, very big
I
cricket match.
was hoping to. I was hoping to. That was the most important event of the day, but I thought, you made this one even more important.
Oh,
So I had to
Alhamdulillah.
leave it.
If it was my personal choice, I probably would be watching the highlights right now. I'm joking. I'm joking. But then again, we need to talk about what is the right choice. Do we just go with what our hearts desire, or do we take the advice of individuals, elders, people we respect, like yourself, even, for example? So to kickstart our conversation, I would like for you to help me understand a bit more when it comes to what is culture. So the expectations from a cultural perspective compared to or versus the religious side of things, if that makes sense. How can one determine what's culture, what's religion?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. First of all, thank you, brother, for having me in this important discussion that you have.
Alhamdulillah.
Uh, it is a very interesting point that you raised to start with about what is culture and what is deen.
Mm,
A culture is basically what a group of people in a certain area or environment of society continuously or consistently do. And that becomes the norm of that group of people, right? Culture could be framed by the language, the food, the religion that those people follow, or do not follow for that matter, and what their previous generations have been doing which they find is a good thing for them to do. It's not about the rights and wrongs, it's just what is acceptable to the society at large in that area.
Sure.
So that on a very broad, a very vague, a loose way, you can define culture as.
I get it. I get
So
it.
yeah, for example, if you go to a place like Indonesia, for example,
Yeah.
you will have the food over there, which is halal, which is a Muslim administered country. The majority of the people have the religion of Islam over there. But culturally, the food might not be to your palate because you've been born in a Muslim country, maybe, or not in a Muslim country, but you are used to a certain kind of palate, which is more involved with spices and oils of different kinds. Whereas over there, you might find it mild or a bit more sweeter than what you're used to. And
Okay.
then you say that's a different culture. You won't say that's right or wrong. It's their culture, and that is your culture.
It's what is expect or accepted to
Yeah.
be norm in their society. And
So
what
that's
is
it.
normal for
That's it.
me is to have a meat pilau,
Yeah.
made in a yakni with all
Hmm.
the right spices, because if it's not made well, I'm not going to touch it. And if if it's sweeter, if it tastes sweeter, it's not pilau anymore. It's zarda, for example. So yeah,
Well,
it's my
yeah,
upbringing, right? That change that,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, also, sorry to interrupt.
yeah, yeah,
The
it's fine.
fact is that within the culture, the individual choices are there, and
Uh-huh.
you're free to choose how you would, for example, in your son or your daughter's wedding, you want to have a certain way of doing things within the gamut of the culture. Another family might do it in a different way within that gamut of that culture, or they might have different cuisine, or they might have like a different kind of a menu to have it. But that's all the culture. We're talking about similarly with dress and all that. What might be acceptable in certain places might not be acceptable in certain places. So, for
Even
example,
that's tradition, yeah.
if you if you say to a Pakistani or an Indian who speaks Urdu, mashallah, he's a Haji, and you would say, okay, he's done his Hajj,
Right,
right? That's how we do it. And generally, if you say Haji in any culture of where Muslims are, they'll understand that he's done his Hajj.
right.
But what if you have done the Hajj 5 or 6 times? Is there any other term for that in the Pak culture?
In the
You're
Pakistani
still a
culture, I
Haji.
don't know, but isn't it Al-Hajj, I guess,
Al
universally?
Hajj is Arabic. Al Hajj
Okay,
is Arabic. You say that in the
okay.
Arab lands.
I see where you're going with
But
this.
in certain cultures, there is a different term for that. And what happens is, again, taking Indonesia an example, the term used for a double or a multiple Haji is a Paji.
It's a Baji. I
Now,
didn't. Are
I
you
was
making this
expecting
up?
that reaction from you. You know why? Because in your culture, Paji means naughty.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, in a different culture, for example, in the
Yeah,
Sikh culture or
yeah.
relate, they
Well,
Baji is
that's a
a
term
brother,
for an elder brother.
older brother.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or
So you
Punjabi,
see
yeah.
how cultures change with language and how we can make different things. So it's not right or wrong. It's the way
Interesting.
you are used to a
Very
certain group of people. So there's a learning point for you. In Indonesia, if you call somebody Paji, it's respectable. In Pakistan, if you call them Paji, they're not like you very much.
true.
Okay,
That is
now
a very valid point. A
yeah.
very valid
So
point. I like it.
again, culture. So and the language affects the culture.
Sure, sure.
Now
So now
we
the
talk
religious
about
side.
the deen.
Yeah,
When you talk about the deen,
yeah.
the religion is what is prescribed in the Quran and the authentic sources of the Hadith. That
Mm-hmm.
is what defines religion. It's not my opinion, your opinion. It is the religion as prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and interpreted by the holy imams which have been brought to us
Mm-hmm.
in the pristine forms. Now, that is the religion. Whether we follow it or not follow it, it's a totally different thing altogether. But what is prescribed has remained same for the past 1400 and whatever number of years, 1445 years of the last message coming across from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that is religion. My take is, in a very broad sense, when I say that, as long as the culture is falling within the gamut of religion, I have no problem. Do whatever you want to do. But
Mm-hmm.
when culture starts to override the religion, that's when I have a problem.
So in
And
a
you
nutshell,
will, so yeah,
just to quickly recap, um, when it comes to culture, that is, can we conclude, and perhaps is it safe to say that it is people made, man made
Yeah.
through a
Hmm.
number of years?
Hmm.
And Islam, the deen, the religion, is Allah made, right?
Pretty
Through
much.
prophets, through the imams that we've learned, we
Hmm.
understand, etc. So
Yep.
this is a very basic level in my
Yep.
simple kind of mind, right?
Yes.
To understand. Now, in the context of marriages, because this is what the show is all about, right? Finding that ultimate spouse, moving forward in that journey that we are all on. How does one combat this, what appears to be an issue, where sometimes there could be a clash between a cultural norm, a tradition, a parampara, I think it's in
In Hindi.
Hindi, yeah, compared to what is that was delivered to us by our prophet, peace be upon him. So how do you navigate through that? Where do you draw the line?
That's a challenge,
It's a major challenge.
especially for the people who are from the Indian subcontinent.
Mm,
It is true for other peoples as well who follow Islam, but it's a lot more for the Indian subcontinent. I'll try to, get into the nitty-gritty and explain why.
sure,
For example, if you talk about the Arabic culture, so you're talking about a group of people who might be from the just beyond Iran towards the west of the world, and then you get into the Arabic culture, and then you go to North Africa. All that is sort of an Arab culture over there. They have similar language, uh, foods might vary, and the overriding religion is Islam, right?
sure.
So the overriding religion being Islam, what it does is it makes them fall within their religion in
Mm,
this entire area that I talked about. I'm coming to the main point here. Whereas in the Indian subcontinent, it's a bit more challenging for the culture to fall within Islam because there are numerous religions which are practiced within the Indian subcontinent.
right.
You have Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Sikhism, Christianity, Jainism, Judaism. All these are there, all these are there. For example, if you went to Sri Lanka, the overriding religion is Buddhism there.
Right.
So in India, the main religion would be Hinduism. So and there are numerous Muslims in all these parts, because when you talk about numerous, we're talking about millions and millions. We're not talking about a few 100,000.
Right.
Even when I say millions and millions, there are loads of millions, not like 2 million, 3 million. We're talking about God knows how many millions, especially in India, for example. It
Sure.
might seem small because the overall population is very high. So what happens is in these kinds of societies, there's a lot of mixing of cultures.
Right.
And that's where the boundaries of religion are blurred
Mm,
because people are very comfortable following their culture because that's what they've grown up in, and it is harder for them to understand whether this is culture or this is religion. Am I doing it within the religion? Am I doing it outside of the religion? So that's why it makes it harder. And especially if you go to India, there's lots of languages as well. And if you went to southern India, to the tip of southern India, from the tip of northern India, you will think that you're in a foreign country because the
mm,
food and the language
wow.
are totally different. So it is a wide variety of people we're talking about. And each and every state in that huge country is full of different kinds of people, different kinds of religions as well. So, which is why there's a mixing of cultures, and which is what makes it difficult for people to understand what is culture and what is not. Sorry, what is religion and what is not, because everything seems to be okay because you're following the same thing that other people might be doing, or similar thing that other people might be doing. Now, this actually gets enhanced mainly because the knowledge of the religion of Islam is low.
Right. Right.
If
Right.
everyone knew what Islam meant or what Islam wanted us to do in each and every aspect of life, then you will be able to demarcate this is my religion, but this is my culture. This
Mm.
culture might not be within the religion, or it might be okay within the religion.
I think you touched upon a very valid point there.
I can see you were thinking a lot.
Yes, you can see my thinking process or my thinking face. I had that on, definitely. Um, where you said that we don't have enough ilm, knowledge, understanding of the religion, I feel that it's very correct. we actually have more knowledge, understanding of our cultural practices, even as compared to Islam. For example, when it comes to marriage, there's all these rasumats. Everybody knows it's going to be like a 4 or 5 day wedding. Again, sticking to the Indian subcontinent right now. And there's all these rasumats from the start of the wedding, the number of gifts that need to be bought for not just the immediate family but the extended family, all the chachas and the mamas and everybody, and then afterwards the breakfast that needs to take place literally a day after. And it must have certain items in that breakfast, and it must be at a certain time, and it must be with a certain number of people. These are instantly, we can tell. I think we have equipped our audience to understand, at least at a very, very basic level, what is a cultural phenomena or thing as compared to what is religion. And I'm going to bring that forward to the parents' side of things. Because especially our parents are very much big into these rasumats. They love their traditions. They need to have mehndi, henna, and all that jazz. How do we maneuver that? How do we tell our parents, listen, it's 2025 now. We don't really have to do this. It's fun. I take it it's not haram, and this is where you correct me if I'm wrong, Sayyid Qasim, that doing these things is not haram, which is why it's still been ongoing for a number of years. If it was haram, that's a no. So how do you manage those conversations with the parents, the elders, who have every right to be involved in your decision making when it comes to marriage, in my opinion?
Yeah, it is tricky. It's difficult. It's challenging. I mean, let's put it one thing clear here.
Yes.
Not all cultural things that happen in a wedding or in a marriage are wrong,
Okay.
or they are to be abhorred, or they are to be looked down upon. A marriage is a
Give us
happy
an
event.
example while you're at it. Give us an example.
I mean, for example, the way we do the foods,
Sure.
like the different kind of food. We said, okay, food is something that brings people together,
Yeah.
and it's nice to feed people. Especially, it is recommended to have a walima of the marriage.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, so that's one thing.
Okay.
Now, it is good to do that. However, it has to be understood that israf is haram
Okay.
in the world that we live in. Okay, many of us are fortunate in this country and in India and Pakistan. We're talking about the subcontinent mainly. That we are very fortunate that we can engage ourselves or indulge ourselves in a fairly, you know, ceremonial kind of a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
That is not required by Islam.
Okay.
A wedding, a marriage is basically a nikah ceremony in which the act has to be done between the girl and the boy so that they can live together in happy matrimony
Mm-hmm.
and live the life towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the whole idea, so that they can build a family and they can create another generation of mu'mineen. Now, the culture, whenever you go to wedding, and you've probably been to a few of your friends, cousins, or elders, or whatever, you've seen the kind of stuff that goes on, which from you, whatever the way you have said it, might seem a bit too much for you, and you want to say, no, it's too much, or you want to be like, why do we have to have this? Why do we have? Well, the elders may want to do it because it's always been done in the previous generation and they got married, and in their previous generation when they got married, all that stuff.
Right.
The younger generation might like to do things different, or maybe they are okay with doing, say, the things which have been done in the previous generations, because just because it's fun to do it, it's a
Sure.
happy thing to do it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't want to decide for anybody what you must do or you must not do. The thing that you have to keep in mind is israf. And 99% of the weddings that happen in our society have a load of israf. And we
Really.
will all be answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment for that.
Let's dig deeper when it comes to israf. So israf is excessiveness. Is that
Yes,
an accurate sort of translation? It's
yes, yes.
excessiveness. We touched upon how our elders may be liable for israf, or liable for the penalties on the day of judgment, as you said, because they undertook israf. But I think the youth can equally fall trap into this. I mean, what's happening in our social media environments, I'm not sure if you've come across, I don't want to mention any names here, but there were lavish weddings that took place in the Indian subcontinent of these very, very high profile individuals. And I believe that was a combination of their elders making that decision, slash the youth as well, who were actually getting married. And we're talking about they invited celebrities from across the world. And for per hour, they were charging X number. I mean, I don't even know where the list starts and finishes. When it comes to our own weddings, when you say asraf, if I can bring an example out, is it because when it comes to food, because you said food, getting together around the dinner table, which I love to do, is an amazing thing. It's a good thing. But what is asraf? Is it because we have to have one meat dish, one not non-veg dish, not meat
Hold on,
like dal? It's
hold
what
on,
is that?
hold on. I'm not going to get boxed into that because I'm going to get into big trouble. I live in
I'm trying
society.
to, as you can see, I'm trying really hard to get you in
I live in,
trouble.
the thing is, I'm not going to prescribe anything for
Sure.
anybody. The weddings that you described were of the high profile people who was in social media. In fact, it was in mass media, to be honest.
Yes.
But thing is, the amount of money those people had is too much in the first place to start with, and it's ugly money being spent on these issues. That's how they spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
That's not for us to take a lead from. But
Sure.
of course, we get impacted by social media and mass media, obviously. But for us, it is important that we take the lead from religion.
Sure.
Now, what is Israf? That's what you said. My personal, why get a dress worth 10,000, 5,000, 20,000 for that matter, a wedding dress? Both for the girl and the boy, they spend these kinds of money. And that is what I mean, which becomes Israf. Okay. Now, everybody wants to look good on their wedding day, or, and, you can be dressed simple and elegant as well, by the way. That's my take on it. But culturally, I wanted to put a foot down on my own marriage way back. This is going back a long time now. It was
Mm-hmm.
in a previous millennium. So it's totally different times. There was no social media and all that stuff. But when I wanted to put my foot down, my grandmother said, if you want to do it that way, don't expect me to be here. Now,
Oh,
she
wow.
being the matriarch of the family, my mom and my uncles and aunties and my dad got jittery, said, this is not the way to behave. So let them do what they want to do. Make yourself as minimally available as possible if you don't like what you see. So, I was like, just do the nikah and the walima and that's done.
Sure.
But in my wedding, if you want to take it that way, and it happens in most people's wedding, a week before and 3 days later, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the kids are happy and they're doing this, that, and the other, and all that stuff. So I wasn't even around for a lot of stuff. I was only there for about 3 days for my wedding and after. So
Amazing. You've
those are a
touched
different
on
time altogether.
something. I mean, we
Yeah,
can very easily segue into one of my key questions to ask here was how can then parents positively influence their children's marriage decisions
that
without
is the key question.
imposing, yeah, that's the key,
Yes.
without imposing their own
Yeah.
preferences. So you just
Mhm.
I think it was your grandmother, you just said that she
Yeah.
was like, it's my way or the highway,
Yeah.
example.
I mean,
So
it wasn't the highway, but it was my way or your way. You do it your way,
oh,
kind of
okay,
a thing.
okay, sure.
Yeah. So, but of course, I love her a lot. She loved me a lot. May Allah bless her. But the point was that it is important to keep the family together, these very important events in life. And I'm big on that. And
Sure.
we should all be keeping our families together and doing it together. Now, the important thing that happens here is just because you have the money to spend should not be the overriding factor in how much you want to spend in a wedding,
Right.
how much you want to make it lavish, how much you want to involve your culture, or how many days you want events happening. The mehndi goes on for 2 3 days, and then the groom stuff goes on for 2 3 days, and then the main nikah ceremony happens, and there's a gathering of 1,000 people or
Wow.
2,000 for that matter, whoever, depends on who you are. I mean, how many people, what kind of a hall you want to hire, and the decorations go on, the flower ceremony, the arrangements of the flowers. All these are expenses which you don't need. Just a simple venue is neat enough and good enough to have a nice wedding, to be honest. And
Hmm.
that itself costs a fair amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
So
As you
we are
noted.
harping on about the money here mainly because of the ISRA. Now, Again, I'm not going to prescribe it, but the point about the wedding, the nikah, is in this day and age when we live in here, we talked about parents, what can the parents do?
Hmm.
First things first, parents need to focus on the religion to start with. If they focus on the religion, that means they will try to learn more about the religion.
Right.
And then when they know about the religion, then they will probably act on it because they claim to be Muslims. They'll probably act, even if it's 10% more, it'll make an impact. And it happens with time and with generations, things get better. So for example, when we were kids, nobody knew the Dua Imam Zamana alayhi salam. Nowadays, you see kids 5 years old are reciting it in the madrasa. So
Sure.
things have changed. They can be changed. So people realize the importance of certain things and they do it in a certain way. So the most important thing nowadays, for I think, even now, we've got almost in the Indo-Pak community, is the fact that about the second generation Muslims living in this country now, who are parents now, and their knowledge of Islam is much lesser than what you would expect it to be. Because
Right.
they think, because their parents were brought up in an Islamic culture way back home, wherever that might be, then they also taken in that. But
Sure.
okay, they might have taken in some of that, but the environment that they lived in when they were growing was totally different. And they've absorbed some of the culture from there. And then they think that on big events, this is the way it should be because that's what my parents told us. That's how it happens in our time.
Following the
But
crowd,
yeah,
following the culture. Yeah.
yes. So, however, the parents who grew up in this country have not taken on the learning of the religion in a deeper way.
Sure.
And it's extremely important. I'm not recommending everybody to study 10 years in the house. If you want to do it, go for it. But the point is, at least 2, 3 years of knowing your ahkam is important for each and every Muslim, not just by, hearsay, but by looking at books when teachers are teaching in a madrasa. And
Hmm.
it's not just enough to send your kids for 2, 3 hours in a week to a madrasa and expect them to know the religion. Because what is happening then is the religion is not being followed properly at home. So the 6 days that the child is at home, the 2, 3 hours on the weekend will not make a major impact.
It's true.
It has
Very
to
true.
be the parents who start learning. And when they learn, when they teach their learning to the younger generation, it'll be a different kind of a younger generation which is growing on, and the results will be seen.
So, taking your analogy and taking your example, I think we do it all wrong. So, for example, when a mom or a dad they decide that it's time for their child to get married, their son or their daughter who's old enough now, they it's the wrong approach they take. They start reaching out to all these groups, these matchmakers, and say, "Oh, my girl's ready to get married. Could you look for a suitable?" What they should be doing months or perhaps years in advance is brushing up on Islam, the ahkam, and understanding what is the right and the wrong, what is Islamic and not Islamic, what is culture, not a cultural, etc. So that they can maneuver and guide their soon to be married, couple in their family the right way and not the sort of purely cultural way. Like you said, there's benefits of having culture, of course there is, but it is the lead has to be taken from the Islamic perspective. And they themselves have to educate one another, the husband, wife, the mom and dad, sorry, before they
Mhm.
even say, yeah, son. They have to actually bring them up in a certain way according to the religion. So that's what
Yeah,
I
so
would
that's what the whole
recommend.
point here is, Ali. The fact that, if you bring up your child in a certain way, then you don't have to teach them when they're 21 or 18
Right.
what is expected from you as far as getting a spouse is concerned.
Hmm.
Because the parents already knew and they taught their children the basic values of Islam.
I,
I'm not saying that they did all wrong because, even now you will notice in our culture, there's still lots of marriages that last a lifetime.
mhm.
Of course, the divorce rates are high, and being in the role that I am in my community here, I can see the rates of divorces are there,
Yeah,
and they're more higher than I would like it to be, or anybody would like it to be. Nobody wants to divorce because they want to live, as the saying goes, happily ever after, which is a lie, by the way. But you know, people tend to live contentedly, but not happily ever after.
sure.
So
Absolutely.
the point is, again, going back to the harping, the main point is that when you are learning religion from childhood, that's when you act your religion. Because
Mm,
by the time you're 14, 15, you have your start having, well, no, 14 is too late, I would say. 12, I would say. Because that's when you start having your own opinions and your own ideas. And the social media and the media otherwise has been bombarding people that, individualism and you
yeah.
are the most important person in your, not necessarily that I'm the most important person. Because, I am an important person, just like anybody else is important. So we have to understand what our Islamic perspective should be. And if we teach ourselves from the beginning, it becomes easier for us to teach our next generation. Because till now, what has been happening, because I'm of a certain age and you are obviously like, could be the children's generation, so to speak.
I'll take
The,
it.
yeah, no, it's just the fact of life. The point is that we assume that whatever I am, my children will take it from me,
Sure,
and
sure.
that'll be it. Now, that is never going to happen, especially because I grew up in a different environment altogether. The kind of
Mm,
social securities that we had, the younger generation who's like between 15 to 35 do not have it in this country. There's no uncles and aunties all around. There's no grandparents all around. There's no cousins, brothers and sisters or grandparents around to give you a little bit of a, tap on your shoulder and say, no, this is wrong. Even culturally, I'm talking about. That
yeah,
way, you stop and learn a lot of things. Whatever is allowed and whatever is not allowed is never spoken about when we were growing up. We just understood that this is what we do and this is what we don't do. This is the language you use. This is the language you don't use. That's how we eat. That's how we don't eat. For example, now eating outside and walking and eating is a norm. Nobody looks bats an eyelid. But if we did it when we were youngsters, it will be considered kitna badtameez hai ye?
yeah.
So he's not, he doesn't have the etiquette how to eat food. So different cultures. Can I say that eating and walking is wrong? Or as a house student, yes, I can say that we are not meant to be doing that.
Sure.
Okay, but if eating outside, for example, if you have your dinner every day at chai wala or wherever, it will not be considered a wrong thing to do nowadays. But if
Mm-mm.
you ate outside every day when I was growing up, it will be said, "Iska ghar bar nahi hai kya?"
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's, you see the differences in culture. So
Massive.
but however, if it is under the gamut of religion, I'm fine with that. What's stopping you from eating out every day if you can afford
As
it,
long as it
if
doesn't
you're keeping
cross
your
the
family
boundary.
together?
Yeah,
So the important thing to understand is, as long as it is allowed within religion, do whatever you want to do within your marriage or to get married. The
say that.
important thing is to teach, teach, teach. And some groups here, some Islamic groups, some Islamic teachers in our country here in the UK do a very good job of having Islamic seminars and all that on a yearly basis, maybe it's on a 6 monthly basis. And it is extremely important, not just for the would-be candidates to attend them, it is
Sure.
extremely important for the parents to attend them.
Yeah, I think that's the
And
underlying.
then, only then they realize, I'm telling you, maybe I might be wrong, but many of them realize that they have taught their children wrong, or they wish they had taught their children certain things which they didn't teach,
Things or
because they
just
just
yeah,
thought that they'll just learn it. Of course, they might have learned it, and you've made an effort to send them to madrasa and all that stuff. But the point is, there's active learning required nowadays. If you do not communicate properly, it is a problem in
sure,
any area of life.
sure. No,
And
that's
in
well said.
our culture of Indo-Pak subcontinent, there's a lot of things which are brushed under the carpet, or they are assumed that the children will learn. Remember, assumption always has an ASS in it.
Right.
So if you assume, you become an ass, make an ass out of yourself.
You guys said it. Wow, there you go. That
So
should be
we are
very.
all guilty of that.
Well, of course, we make assumptions on all
Yeah.
sorts, all sorts.
If I talk about controversial, might sound controversial, but it is not. Did your father teach you how to do istabra when you were growing up?
That's a great question. I don't think so.
Exactly. Now you're going to ask your peers, your friends, how many were taught explicitly, because it is a not done thing. Or seek jayega. If you don't teach, somebody else is going to teach him the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam said, get hold of your children before somebody else get hold of them.
Mm.
Because children will always have questions, whatever generation you are.
Yeah, because
And
they'll get it from TikTok, they'll get
yeah,
it from Instagram, they'll get
exactly.
it from
If you
social
don't
media.
answer the questions, or if they don't feel comfortable asking you, because of the way it's been brought up. Then they will get their answers from somewhere else, and you might not like it when they start practicing. So
Absolutely.
it's extremely important to be clear with your children, have good communication skills, especially when they're young. When I say
Mm.
young, I mean 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. After that, if you have not built communication bridges by that time, it's late.
I couldn't agree more. I think you have to definitely start when they're young, and it's hard work, but you got to do
Yeah.
it because when
Yeah,
they're old
that's
enough,
what builds trust.
yeah, it gets
I
easier.
always harp on about this because this is going out, and I'm talking general stuff as well because it's important that credibility, building credibility with children is extremely important if you want to have a good time communicating with them when they're adolescent or they
Mm.
are growing older in their late teens and early 20s. Because building credibility, how do you build credibility when they're younger?
Yeah,
Not just by bedtime stories, not just by playing with them. Very, very important to play and make it light and just be interacting with them. The biggest way to build credibility is to follow up on what you say you will do with them. How many times have
fulfill
you
your
seen
promises.
or has been done to you as well, maybe inadvertently by your parents, that, okay, okay, you do this now, we'll take you there later on, or I'll get you a chocolate later on, and then no chocolate.
Right.
It's a small thing. It's a literally a trivial thing, but for the child, that chocolate was very important because dad said he's going to get it from me if I did this. I done that. I didn't get that chocolate. That
You
after,
missed it
okay,
away.
I'll be there. I'll take you another day. We can't go today because we're busy. I'll take you another day to the park. And then say, I'm too tired on that day. Then that's when you start losing credibility. It becomes a pattern. Extremely
Actually, it
important to
reminded
follow
me
up.
of something as well, Kibla, just now. I owe some money to my children because I
Mm.
asked them to do something and I'm
Yep.
making a note of it so I can give it to them today. So I'm gonna implement exactly what you said straight after this, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. So
I
that is what is, once you build credibility, then the child starts trusting you. Son, daughter, doesn't matter.
agree.
And then when then you can talk about complicated stuff, and then they start listening to you. Of course, like I mentioned initially, the basis is that you have the knowledge to talk about it, which
Yeah.
is why I mean it's extremely important to know the ahkam authentically for all parents, all people like you and me. In your generation, everybody should know what the basic ahkam is. We're talking about marriage, so let's talk about marriage. We should know what the ethics of marriage are. Islamic marriages are not just built on law. I'll tell you why I said that. And I talk to the girl and the boy both. That's what how I do it different. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who does it different among the interpark people, is the fact that I talk to the youngsters at length. When I say at length, I mean 1, 2, 3 hours. Maybe not on one day, but whatever they're comfortable. If they want to
Yeah.
talk, keep talking because I have questions as well. And I tell them what an Islamic marriage means actually. What should expect, not just rainbows and roses and flowers,
Sunshine.
because life is all about bumps and managing the bumps and dealing with the bumps and dealing with it together.
That's
So
it.
I take sessions with the youngsters at length. But that's what it is, because it's not just about, for me, if somebody says, I need you to do a nikah, then I sit with the child on the phone. Well, I wouldn't call them a child, the youngster, and talk to them about the Islamic marriage is and ask me questions. And I want their parents to listen in
Mm.
so that, and when I tell the girl what your duties are and what your rights are, they're very happy. Oh, Maulana. And they tell the guy, everything is your responsibility, son. What the hell? What are you talking about? I have to do this, that after being at work. I said, yes. Before you have to do all that stuff. Now, they have seen it different in the homes. They've seen mom doing everything in the house.
Mm.
Mainly when they have been working, we're working moms, they've been still doing stuff at home. And dad, not that much. Some parents, excellent, both share their duties together. So the point is, if you go by the law, the black and white law, it might sound that everything is in favor of the woman. And in reality, it's sometimes the opposite, because you see men working outside and then having a comfortable time in the evening. Women, they're working inside the house. Nowadays, women working outside the house and inside. And the
Yes.
kids have seen it. Hang on a second. You're telling me this, but my mom does this, that, and this. I said, no, you don't have to make the roti. Your dad has to make the roti for you.
Wow.
That's the law. But I tell them the Islamic marriages are not run only on laws. Law is the basic ground on which, so that nobody gets exploited. That's the minimum requirement. That's why laws are. Why would you have a traffic light otherwise? It's empty, we could go there, but the green light might mean that some other car from the other side might come whizzing past. And if you're stopping at a red light, that means you're safe from that accident, so to
Exactly.
speak. Yeah. So it's so that it makes it easier for all of us, or makes it smoother. Let's not say easier, because we don't want to be sitting on a traffic light when it goes red 3 times before your turn comes in. It happens when you travel at 5 o'clock in the evening. You can't help it. But it is there because it makes it smoother, facilitates it for all the people. That's why the laws are there, the basic ones. But if you want to run an Islamic marriage, it's always run on ethics.
Right.
You see, the morals, the akhlaq. That's what is important. Where do you learn the akhlaq? You learn it from Islam, from the Quran, from the Hadith, which is why it is important for people who are at your age or younger to start learning about the ahkam and the akhlaq. And when they learn it, then they'll be able to pass it on to their children. This is what the Islam wants. This is what an opinion might want or a culture might want. If the culture is in line with the religion, fine, perfect, why not? But if its culture is at odds with Islam, then we have to stop at that point.
Right.
And that is where the difficulty lies, because we don't know how to stop. How can we tell our older generation to make them stop here? This is not right.
So you've laid down a very strong path or approach that one can take or families can take. For example, the parents, if they just start learning about Islam in from the get-go, they can teach their children at a very young age so that when the time does come, everybody's able to communicate with each other effectively and in the correct way under the umbrella of Islam, understanding what's culture, respecting the culture. Nobody's saying you don't have to, pretend to not be born in a certain. No, this is what you're born in a certain area because Allah decided you to be a Pakistani, an Indian, Indonesian. That's His choice. You didn't have a choice to become Indonesian, for example. You have to respect that. So you respect the cultures, but again, the lead should always be from the Islamic banner. That's what you take that from. Um, and I want to ask you now, what part, so if the parents are not getting it, if the parents, we laid out an approach just now, what then can the community do? What can then the community leaders do to assist these families as the elders of the family nucleus as well as the youngin? So I think you've also touched upon it briefly where you yourself engage with a number of youth when they're about to get married and you have these lengthy conversations and this teaching. But what more can be done, not just by individuals as yourself, you're the leaders of your own communities, but initiatives that can perhaps be brought forth, projects. Should we, e.g., should we have like an adult madrasa? Because you also mentioned madrasa just now.
Good luck with that. I would really love that.
I would really
Really
like
love that.
that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, if I was a full time person who was doing the dini aspect of life, because I have a job to do as well to earn a living, then I would actually engage people in madrasa at least once a week. Because, an adult madrasa will be more successful than a youngster's one. You know why? Because when adults are at a certain age, especially at my age, and they'd like, this is a time when they're starting to think more about they're going to die.
The end.
Okay. And they have had a lot of fun, but they want to learn the religion, they want to practice the religion. So this is the time they will come of their own accord. The ones who don't want to come will never come. In children's mother, so what happens is whether you want to go or don't want to go, you have to go because mom and dad said you have to go. So, it is
It's
extremely
a tricky
important.
one, yeah. So there
An
should be
adult
more.
madrasa is a really good idea. And, both mom and dad should come there, spend at least, maybe twice 1 hour in the week or once 2 hours in the week at least. There should be something to do it in just like we do for the children's madrasa. So that is
Maybe
something
I'm
marriage related topic, because we are talking about marriage.
yeah.
Extremely important to attend these seminars that are done by some of our alimuddin in the
Sure.
UK. Extremely important, because
It's all about
you
educating.
will not make a bigger decision than selecting your spouse
Nice
in the
one.
whole life. That is the biggest thing, because that
Maybe
shapes
the
your life.
US can do something on this initiative, on this topic, because they're responsible for many projects and many initiatives. Obviously, Shia Spouse being one of them. So
Hmm.
we can take that back and get the team involved, and maybe they can do something with an adult madrasa or a seminar. Now, I'm conscious of time.
Yep.
We wanted to obviously keep this around the 40-ish minute mark, but we had a few more questions, and if we can kind of zip through them, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Okay.
I wanted to talk a little bit about arranged marriages. Um, is that a no-no in this day and age? Did that only work in the like back in the day? Or do you feel you are a proponent of arranged marriages? How can you manage that relationship, what your parents want when it comes to
Okay.
that decision?
Okay. Good question. Very important question. I have no problem with arranged marriage or selecting your own spouse. Either way, doesn't matter,
Okay,
because
that's a
it is
straightforward
the
answer.
thing is, Islam says that a girl and the boy are allowed to select their own spouses.
Right.
That's
There
it.
you go.
Now, that is important. That's the one thing. Secondly, now that doesn't mean that, oh, all the youngsters think that you have no right to select my life partner and all that stuff to their parents. They can't say that. They
Mm,
shouldn't say that, because remember, whatever, however smart, however educated, however well aware of the religion you might be, as a 20-year-old, as a 25-year-old, as a 30-year-old, you still do not have the wisdom that life has taught to our parents. If they are reasonable people, they will be much wiser if they are like 50 years old compared to anybody who is 30 years old.
sure.
Because wisdom comes from two things. One is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other is through experiences. A 30-year-old or 25-year-old will never have the experiences of the previous, of their parents, for example. So it is important for every youngster to understand that they seek advice from their grown-ups, whoever it might be, whether it's your dad, your mom, your uncle, aunts, your grandparents, or the alimuddin, whoever it is you are comfortable and trusting, who you think is wise enough to give you such advice. Don't go seeking advice from Tom, Dick, and Harry. That's
Mm,
only going to confuse people. So it is important that we understand, even if we are allowed to select our spouses, that we seek advice and wisdom from our previous generation. Very,
sure.
very important. And if you're doing an arranged marriage, it is important for parents to understand that if you make your child marry somebody, it is not allowed in Islam.
Right. The force
Yeah.
element is not there.
The force element is not there. The girl has to give the proposal to the boy. That's how it works. Ijab and qabul is, the ijab comes from the girl, and the
Right.
man says qabil to tazwij. So it is important to understand that we have to involve everybody. There's a family is there for a reason. To,
So the parents using their wisdom and life experiences can perhaps select a few candidates
yeah,
for
or
their child and
whatever
say,
way they can positively
what,
impact on the
yeah,
youngsters.
because they know that the family backing of a certain individual is also very important. They need to know if a person was brought up in a non-dysfunctional family, for example, right?
Hmm.
They can see that, they can spot that because they've been there, done that. That's their experience. But I guess what the parents just need to know is compatibility. They just need to give that
Yeah,
freedom, that individualism to their children, to the new youth, the new couple. Make sure they're compatible. They actually genuinely like each other. They get on with each other, you know.
yeah.
And of
I
course,
mean, many parents are doing very well nowadays in that matter. What they do is,
oh, okay,
because
that's
obviously youngsters do not have that networking in the society. For that matter, some of them do. And whenever we talk about things, we talk about general stuff, but it's not a sweeping generalization. Because
sure.
some parents might mess it up big time because they have no wisdom.
Mm,
Most parents are
happen, yeah.
okay with it. Some children have no wisdom. Some children have really, really a good head on their shoulders. So it can't just say that this is what works. No, it can't. But what we are saying here is, generally, this is what the tools of we can use. For example, we should use our parents. We should use our extended family members who are grown up, and that's how we can make better decisions.
Last question, sir. Then we're going to wrap this up. When it comes to effective communication from these young adults towards their elders, what type of strategy, tactics do you think they can deploy when it comes to expressing their personal choices to their parents regarding marriage?
Yes, like I talked about, this is the most important aspect of this particular step of
Sure.
their choices, expressing that to their parents. If you have the credibility and if you have the relationship from childhood with your child, it will not be a problem.
Mm,
M- The percentage of people who have that level of communication is low in
yeah,
the Indo-Pak society.
unfortunately. Yeah,
It is low. And because they think that now we have taught him enough and he can talk to his mom only, it's fine. I don't want to talk to my child about this and that and the other. Or he can talk to his teacher, or we'll go to the Imam Barga and we'll speak to the local alim about it. But you don't want to get into the conversation. People forget sometimes that how important the parent is for the child to make decisions. How important it is that they want their parent to be able to talk to them nicely and in a constructive manner. I mean, the elders might think that, okay, they've done the jobs, but children, each time, however old they might get, they still want to discuss it with parents. Not in a way of like, I don't know anything, please tell me, because they are smart and they want their loved ones to understand that they are smart and they understand the importance of this issue.
sure.
So the way to do it is communication. We in our country, we have a lot of communication courses, communication skills. You know about it probably. Lots of how to improve communication. You can get a
Absolutely.
dime a dozen online. That is okay. But what it doesn't teach is how to interact with elders, especially parents. Now, when you're 25, 21, 18, for example, or 16 even, you think that you know the world. Well, you might, but then you start thinking that, you don't need to talk to your parents about it. Now, communication skills don't teach about humility. If you make it under an Islamic umbrella, then you know how to communicate with your elders in a manner that the elders feel that they are wanted and they are considered important. And the youngsters also know how to communicate. It's not just from top down, it's from bottom up as well to make them understand how to communicate. Top down is important as well because, you know, after a certain age, when the child starts questioning things, the parents said, I told you this, you have to do this. Bahas mat karo, all that stuff. But the point is that these objections are coming from the younger generation because they want answers. And if you're unable to give answers, that's one step of a problem in any case. Second thing to do is if you don't know the answers, be open about it. So listen, I do not know because I haven't studied that bit. What I'll do is I'll find the answer for you, or I'll take you to somebody who will be able to give the answers. That is what I mean by communication.
Sure.
Not that you should have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. I don't have all the answers. So we can always try to get better and better. So this kind of a program is important for us to learn how to get better so that
That's
the younger generation has lesser of an issue in a challenging environment to find a suitable spouse who is in the religion of Islam.
Thank you, sir. That was amazingly put, and I think the key takeaway, if we can all sum it up, it's about educating yourself
Yeah,
from your
definitely.
elders to the youth, from everyone, from the communities, etc. And just like that, we've obviously run out of time. I was really enjoying this conversation with yourself. Thank you for this insightful and thought-provoking episode. A huge thank you to you, our incredible guest, Maulana Syed Imran Qaseem, for sharing your wisdom and for shedding light on such an important topic. I'm sure your insights will give us, the audience, much to reflect on as the hours and days and weeks are to come. So thank you very much for joining us for this particular
Thank you very much. You're very welcome. May Allah bless you all for all the efforts that you're putting in.
episode.
And inshallah, may Allah guide us all.
Before you go, sir, are you aware of the ShiaSpouse.org platform? I was going to ask, have you been on it? I mean, you obviously don't need to be on it, but are you familiar with it?
I am very familiar with. In fact, the last event in the Al Khoi Foundation, I was there with Maulana Sayyid Abbas Naqvi Sahab. I was there
Could I
with
request one
Misam.
last thing before you go is just to tell us a little bit your own perspective on the Shia Spouse initiative that is being run by MUS. Just give us a couple of a minute worth of what you can tell us
I
about.
think, yes, it's a good question. I think from what I attended, and I've heard about it going on MUH meetings and all that. I had heard about it for the last 2, 3 years, but when I attended it for the first time, when I was invited by your Shia Spouse people, a couple of whom I know very well,
Yeah,
and it was a very well organized event to start with, an extremely important platform to bring parents and candidates together to see what is going on. And then there is no what do you call it? There is no substitute for a face-to-face experience. You can have a video call like we are having, and we have a bit of a rapport already because we met personally in the days gone by. You and me, I'm talking about. So so that helps. the level of interaction face to face is extremely important. I'm all for online learning and meeting and all that stuff, but there is no substitute for a face to face experience. You learn a lot more by the communication of body language. As you know, body language is 70% of the communication.
Mm,
Words can only express just more than 20%. So that makes us learn a lot. And first impressions always hold, I think. If you like a person on the first impression, you'd like to want to know more about that person to see whether the values and beliefs are compatible with what my values and beliefs are. Is he less religious? Is he too religious for me? Those things are important. I'm not saying the rights and wrongs here, but I'm talking about individual people, what they were looking for in this spouse. So that event was extremely important, and I think we should have that continuously. It is also, I noticed that from the time, the individuals are coming on their own nowadays a lot more, from what I've been told, compared to before. They were like parents always accompanying their children, and now it is a lesser. I think this event is important for parents as much as it is for candidates. If you can see and talk to people, it is great. But parents also know that what is it going to be, what that candidate. If somebody's narrowed down two or three candidates, for example, there somebody's child has done that, then the parents can look at them and see, they can talk to that prospective candidate and see whether it is going to be worth it or not worth it and all that stuff. This is all get down to communication. So, but these events are extremely important. Is the nutshell.
excellent,
I
excellent. Well,
really
there you go,
appreciated the
guys.
way it
Right.
was done.
Straight from Maulana himself, who has attended one of these events sponsored and managed by Shia Spouse. He is, of course, speaking of the live in-person events that are being held approximately 3 to 4 times a year. Every quarterly is the aim. Do look out for our social media channels for the next event, especially the episodes that we are doing for you on a regular basis. With that said, I do want to thank our amazing viewers. You guys are the heart of this platform. It's all about your engagement, your thoughts, and basically your willingness to go ahead and have those real and honest conversations. That's what makes Shia Spouse so special. And with that said, please don't forget to spread the word, shiaspouse.org. We will inshallah see you again very soon. The holy month of Ramadan is upon us. Please remember us, the entire team, in your du'as. The days and nights of this month is very, very blessed. And we seek the rewards from these upcoming nights, inshallah. This is Ali Hassan, your host, signing off. Until next time, take care, stay blessed. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.